It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. We have a busy one today. First, we'll look back at Fulham's win in the Carabao Cup 2-0 against Bristol City, a fairly comfortable cruise at the Cottage. We'll face Cambridge in the next round, but we're not going to stay on the Carabao for too long because we have a lot else to discuss. Finally, it looks like Fulham are linked with a few players. Tony Khan has awoken and he's started dialing. Samuel Chukwueze, Kevin from Shakhtar Donetsk, maybe Hayden Hackney, and maybe Andreas is going to be departing. And then we have the small matter of an SW6 derby on Saturday. Can we make it back-to-back wins at the Bridge? Could we? I mean, it'll be a tough assignment against Chelsea, no doubt. We will preview that match, and we've got a lot of emails to get through as well. I'm joined on the Thursday Club today by Jack Collins. Hello.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing?
Good, thank you, mate. And unembargoed, Jack Kelly, the voice of all Fulham FC press conferences. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Obviously, we have got the written section of this podcast that will be available at 10:30 tonight.
All out of order.
Yeah.
Jumbled up. Yeah.
How are you doing?
Yeah, no, really well. This is going to be a chaotic few days, so I'm strapped in and ready to go.
Yeah, no sleep for Jack Kelly. I mean, you must be grateful that the deadline is 7 p.m. on Monday, not the usual 11, because you might actually get a couple of hours kip.
Yeah, what about deal sheets?
Well, yes, obviously. You're not going to bed at 7.
No.
I can tell you that much.
Don't go to bed just yet.
Yeah, it's like 6:50 p.m. No. I think I was actually speaking to someone at the club yesterday, and they said, we're relieved it's finishing at 7 p.m. as well, just for their own sanity. So look, it's going to be a very, very interesting day, and of course, because of the luxury of it finishing earlier, we might have time for a live stream to go beyond the deadline and talk about hopefully 2, 3, 4 deals that go through.
Yeah, well, we're going to be doing a deadline day podcast. This is like the Avengers assembling, because on Tuesday, it's Thursday Club meets Jack and Joe show for an epic podcast on Tuesday morning where we discuss deal sheets. Jack will just be on like 30 minutes sleep by this point. I'm very excited for the Avengers to assemble for that one. But look, let's look back at last night's game. We'll do some 3-word reviews. Jack Collins, what are your favourites? Secretary Jack Collins, that's what you used to
My
be called.
initial Fulhamish role.
Yeah.
It's nice to be back on secretary duties.
That's one for the heads.
There wasn't loads. That's deep cut.
Yeah,
It's
deep cut Fulhamish.
There wasn't loads, but and I can see why, basically. But you'll get the point quite quickly. Random Fulham stuff with Raul, Ruins, Robbins, I thought was quite nice. TJ Fogarty with Cruise Control Carabao. Colin Spring done without drama. Ian McCabe said Cruise Control Snooze Fest. Rinaldi said Lecomte looks steady. And I think my favourite might have been Truthsayer at Simon43652 Simon, who said score, bore.
Yeah, that probably was the kind of like summation of the match, Jack. By the way, if you hear some banging during this episode and you wonder if it's like Jack aggressively stomping the floor,
It's the amount of deals going through.
Yeah, it's actually it's Jack's phone's buzzing.
It's like I thought there was going to be a storm last night. It turns out it was just Jack's phone like vibrating the entire code.
They're actually building a fancy David Lloyd gym in the building, but the growing pains of that, and not that I'll be signing up to the David Lloyd, is that they're doing some renovations downstairs, which is quite annoying. Anyway, that explains the noise. It could just be Jack Kelly's phone. Let's discuss the match though, Jack. Look, professional, right? I was watching this from home, and I said to you beforehand, I was like, I obviously was watching the Fulham game, but I did have that Grimsby match on the second screen. As soon as it went 2-0, it was just so obvious that Fulham were in complete control of this match. And that's exactly what we want. I don't want an exciting second round of the Carabao Cup match. I don't want any drama. I just want exactly what we did last night. 2 early goals, put them away. It was a Championship B team against a Premier League B team, and ultimately, it's not a massive shock that the Premier League B team are slightly better than the Championship one.
Yeah, actually, it was incredibly reminiscent of the game we played at St Andrews last year against Birmingham. We took an early 2-goal lead through Raul Jimenez and Jay Stansfield, who then went off to Birmingham himself. And then it was just sort of a training match where Birmingham last year were the better team and actually put us under a bit of pressure, but didn't really do much in terms of creating chances. But it was the same with Bristol City, where we sort of went, we're 2 up here, let's just enjoy it. We watched TC, we watched Harry Wilson, we watched Smith Rowe link up beautifully in the middle of the park, and it was all very fairly comfortable, apart from Armstrong hitting the. No, it wasn't. It was Fally
Mayulu.
Yeah, hitting the post in the second half. It was very low key in terms of an actual match of football. After we scored the second goal, and I thought the second half was pretty boring. And like you say, that the Grimsby game was taking my attention. The under-21s was taking my attention. They scored a last-minute winner against Valencia in the Premier League International Cup. So yeah,
all the 21s.
Say that again.
Up the 21s.
Up the 21s. Honestly, it was absolute scenes apparently at Motspur Park. It's just a shame no one was there to watch it because everyone was at the Cottage. So it was a good night, a fun night, a nice little sunset as well, a nice little skyline above the Cottage, and that was all she wrote.
Yeah, I mean, you sat in the Riverside, Jack.
I did, yeah.
I mean, I don't want to take away from what was a brilliant Fulham performance, particularly in the first half. I mean, it was oozing at times. It was just sumptuous. And I guess it's just a little bit of a reminder, isn't it, that sometimes we talk about players like Harrison Reed and Tom Cairney as, are they good enough for Fulham anymore? And we it's almost like they're discarded toys a little bit. And actually, you're like, bloody hell, these guys are so good at football and are still if they were in the Championship, they'd be at the very, very, very top end of it.
Yeah, 100%. Look, we were very good for about 30 minutes. Right? We really did put them under the cosh. There was a couple of chances. We scored a goal yesterday that we don't really score, which was Adama kind of bursting down the right, pulling it across and it getting tapped in. I like that kind of goal because it feels like a kind of repeatable pattern. And look, it's not great goalkeeping, it's not great defending. Obviously, it goes down as an own goal. I did like the way that we tried to exploit that channel. It was a bit of a strange game in some ways because we were fine. First half, we were good. I'm not sure still how that corner reached Raul. In my head, I'm like, when it was taken, people around me groaned. And it was and then it reached Raul and we scored. We're like, oh, right.
Do you know what the goal? Can you remember Polinia's equaliser against Arsenal?
Yeah.
Harrison Reed corner into the same area. I think that one was slightly better work.
It was slightly higher. It felt like a corner you could attack. This one, it felt like he'd dribbled it. It isn't. When you look back at it, it's not. But it didn't feel like it was taken with any power. And it just sort of rolled into the box. And I was like, obviously someone's going to clear that, the front post. And it just landed. Raul took it down and just slotted it.
I mean, what's the defender doing? He's still
Raul
running
has
past
the
him.
Freedom of Bishop's Park at that point. I'm not sure what's going on in any sort of situation from a Bristol City perspective. But it did feel like it would have been nice to have kicked on a little bit. Look, I'm not going to sit here and complain about this because it was so fine, right? But at 2-0, you're like, okay, can we get a couple of players' goals? Can we get, a Harry Wilson off the mark for the season? Can we get a Muniz back into when he comes on? Can we make a difference? Can Josh King score a goal? These are the things you're kind of looking for just a little bit of moment. And I thought that the way that Fulham played in the second half, and look, I get it, containing energy, 12:30 kickoff on Saturday, it makes sense from that perspective. But I did just wonder if we had the ability to kick on and that we invited pressure. Now, maybe this was something that Silva wanted. I wouldn't be surprised, considering the tactical changes he made, if he was like, okay, can we see if we can sort of hold a team at bay for a little while? And you can do that in a game like this. And if it had gone to 2-1, then maybe that changes and you switch formations around a bit. But at one point, we're playing 3 at the back with Iwobi as one wing back and Adama as the other. Neither of whom particularly wanted to play wing back by the looks of it. Now, I wondered if Harrison Reed might go to right back at that point. He didn't really, but he was covering that kind of channel. I've still got a thing about this.
I was going to say, one day Jack Collins will see Harrison Reed at right back and it will be the greatest day of his life.
I think he'd be a really good right back. He just has all the attributes to be a really good fullback. But yeah, it was fine. As you say, Mulu hits the post. It's a really, really good bit of work to get him into that area. And then when he shot, it was right behind it. I was like, that's a good goal. And then it came back on first, and I was like, wow, we're lucky there. But it was, aside from that, I don't think there was too much to worry about. Bristol weren't great themselves. And so when you're putting it in that perspective, Fally Mayulu, by the way, is the brother of Seni Mayulu, who scored the last goal for PSG in the Champions League final.
Okay.
The elder brother, we should probably add. But yeah, I thought he was quite good when he came on. There's not loads to dissect, I don't think, from the game in terms of. I thought that switch formation in the second half was a little bit weird, and it didn't really work. but that was because there were players playing in positions that they didn't really suit. And I think that what we saw at the end of the game was Fulham just very much managing it. And there's a moment at the end where Josh King like skips down the wing, he beats his man, and he like feeds Adama, and the ball ends up back with Benjamin Lecomte. It's like the 92nd minute, and I'm like, well, that's where Fulham's heads are at right now. It's just get this done, and it was just job done, done and dusted.
Perfect.
But it needs to be 6 out of 10. It needed to be low key because we've got this massive game on at 12:30 on Saturday, and it's not like because of the under-21s, it's not like we could bring in loads of the kids and play them. Not that we wanted to anyway, because we're taking it seriously. But it was a case of we need this to be no thrills, no spills, just get it done.
Yeah.
And exactly what happened. The only caveat to that is the injury to Harry Wilson, which is really interesting because basically when he came off, I thought he wanted to come back on because he kept hovering
he kept
around
standing on the. But I thought so too. I thought he'd come back on.
I thought he was about. Yeah, we were playing with 10 men for like 3 minutes. I was like, what's going on here? But I was encouraged by that. And then Silver after the game says, it's the same foot. You got the injury against United. It's in the same area. It's concerning. We have to assess it. And I was like, fuck. If we get Harry Wilson injured, then
he looked okay. Like he walked off under his own steam.
Right.
Like he came off. He did turn to Timothy Catania and be like, at one point, these are the benefits of sitting in the Riverside.
The insight is amazing.
Honestly, you get to see all of it.
We're just gonna have to stump up the $3,000, and you'll be able to do this every week.
Mate, if you want to put me in hospitality, I'll take the hit. But yeah,
think of all those Michelin-star meals you'll get as well.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, unbelievable. But yeah, it was okay for like he was okay in terms of walking off. Yeah. Like whether that's enough to put him in the squad for Chelsea at the weekend, we will see.
Yeah. I mean, I seem to remember that Harry Wilson injury the first time round thinking like, oh, this will be okay. And then it was a bit of now he's actually out for 3 months. Fingers crossed, because that would obviously be a huge blow. And I wanted to talk about the positioning of that front three.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Harry was in the centre. I actually had to do the Fulhamish lineup. I don't often do it, but suddenly saw that lineup come out. I was like, oh, who's left wing? Because no one was naturally left. It was obviously Adama, Wilson, and Smith Rowe. And I went for Smith Rowe being on the left. And I was really unsure about my decision. There was a few comments being like, no way it's going to be that. So I was first of all, quite delighted to get that right. But also, I actually thought that was the one that made most sense because I had a feeling that Marco wanted to see what Smith Rowe could do on the left and maybe was waiting for an opportunity that wasn't the Premier League in order to do that. And I feel like we've been crying out to see Wilson in the 10.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like Adama, he plays on the right. You can't not play Adama on the right wing. His basically main trick is to go round the outside of people and cut it back. Like he can't do that on the left wing. I thought Smith Rowe looked really, really effective there. Sure, he's not an explosive winger, and hopefully we'll come on to maybe someone who can fill that role. We don't really have that person on the left. But should Iwobi be out for any reason, I kind of think, and look, we also like Sessegnon there, of course, but I thought Smith Rowe did a great job out there on the left. I thought he looked really comfortable.
Yeah, and I think that because we saw him play on the left against Al Ittihad as well in pre-season, so this was something that I was sort of seeing.
Yeah.
I thought this would happen, and it's encouraging that we have sort of a third number 10 option in Harry Wilson, and then obviously a second left wing option in Emil Smith Rowe. I think it's more of a, I hate the phrase message to the board, but it could be something like that. Like, we don't have another left winger. I'm Marcus Silva, I'm quite stubborn, so I'm going to put our number 10 out on the left, even though he can play out there. And obviously we're linked with one or two wingers now. So thought we did all right. And like I said, the link up with TC and Harry Wilson was very, very good. There was actually moments where Smith Rowe could have drove on a little bit more and actually got into just outside the box, but he played the safe pass and to just be a little bit more braver on the ball against obviously a championship side in Bristol City. I just thought maybe he could have taken that opportunity a little bit more. But also, again, I was very happy with a conservative sort of performance from Fulham, not to risk any injury, albeit, Harry Wilson, but very, very pleasing. If we get another winger in, I don't necessarily think Smith Rowe will play off the left too often, but it's a nice option to have.
Yeah.
And that is, you look at this squad, and there are so many players who can play in different positions, and the versatility that we have in this squad is incredibly encouraging in this spot that we're in with no signings in apart from Lecomte. So, yeah, I'm a fairly happy chappy
Yeah. Cambridge United in the next round.
The Elizabeth Barnard derby.
Yes, the Elizabeth Barnard derby at home. There were a couple of comments on X about, I wish it was an away day and all of this stuff. I must admit, Jack, if we're taking the cup seriously, we need the gimme draws. I shouldn't say that. That is not it. I do not. I regret my words. I heavily regret the word I just said. No game is a gimme, but League Two side at home is much more preferable than a really fun away day. We only had to see what happened last night. When you go away to, well, any team really, you know that you're in for a headache, and this is a simpler tie on paper and what Fulham need.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it. It was either you wanted like a blitzing away day, like a really, really good one, or...
Do you though? Because I what I wanted was exactly what we got.
I would quite like to go to like Sincil Bank.
But that's a nightmare. If you want to win the Carabao Cup, that's not what you want.
As in, I'm quite intrigued about what Sincil Bank is like.
Would you rather win the Carabao Cup or go to Sincil Bank?
As in the chances, those two things are different, right? If you got drawn against Lincoln City, you're like, oh, well, therefore we can't win the Carabao Cup. You're like, no, okay, cool. Like, there is, I think, a little bit of faith to be had here, and this is a good side who will know how to dispatch teams. It's not the same as watching a kind of dysfunctional Manchester United play against Grimsby. And I appreciate what you're saying. And look, those things can happen home or away. I agree with what you're saying on paper. But I do think that, once it came out and once it was like, please don't be a Premier League side, home or away. Let's just avoid that. And I think that the stickier ones would be a Bristol City in the next round, where suddenly they're like, oh, actually, we're 3 games away. This one, I think that they're like, it doesn't matter. We want to get promoted. If we get dropped out of them, we've been there, right? We've been in the exact position that Bristol City have been in, where we're like, we go there and you have a bit of fun, but it doesn't really matter because you know that the league is your main focus. Now, I think that the stickier ones tend to be when you get like a championship side who are like 10th, and they're like, well, we can't really get promoted, so we may as well have a crack at the Carabao Cup and see what we can do.
Which is what we kind of found out with Preston last year.
Yeah,
that was I mean, we saw that as a decent draw, but for me, you see team. I feel like every year. I mean, Chelsea actually didn't have this last night, but you see Chelsea. I swear, every time in the third, fourth round of either the FA Cups or Carabao Cups, they always get Morecambe at home. Like it's always that every season. We need a little bit of that. And look at Palace last year.
They've got Lincoln away.
Yeah, they're the ones going to Sincil Bank. And look at Palace's run in the FA Cup last year. First 2 rounds, Stockport, Doncaster, and then they had Millwall in the 5th. They didn't play a Premier League team until they faced us, and famously they did all right. But I think if we're serious about winning the Cups, or at least getting to semi-finals and finals, and everyone knows that that's what Fulham wants this year. Marcus Silva's gone on and on and on and on about it. Like, I'm all for a good away day.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
I think we would have beaten Cambridge United away.
Yeah,
like,
so
if these games were flipped over, like, as in, we're talking about like the difference between home and away is like Fulham going through and Fulham going out. Like, look, that can happen either side, right? Like, it's not a 50-50 chance. Like, I would very much back us to have gone and won at Wickham or Cambridge United or Port Vale or Lincoln City.
We just don't need the aggro.
Is that okay?
Yeah, a lot of fans just want the tick, don't they? They want an opportunity to go to these League One, League Two grounds.
I don't fancy being back there for a couple of years if you're all right with that.
For perspective, Joe Sansom texted me when the draw was done. He said, "We are 2 games away from a quarter-final. One of them is Cambridge at home."
Yeah,
what an opportunity that is, by the way. I mean, it's really the draw was a complete nonsense in the way they do it. European teams seeded and they can't draw any of the other European teams. So that first half of the draw, you're sort of being like, oh, don't be Fulham.
Yeah, it's a really weird experience where you're there for the first 7, you're like, don't be Fulham, don't be Fulham.
And the funny thing about it was we were trying to watch it on the TV in the press room, and for some reason the TV just wasn't working. So the guys at the club had it on at the front desk with the volume on really, really loudly, and I was just sort of sitting there like a puppy waiting for its dinner, just sort of like waiting for the draw to come through. And I was like, when are Fulham coming out of this draw? Because how long we got to go?
We worked it out at the end. We were like, because I watched it with Elizabeth, and she was like, I'd love Cambridge away. And we got to the last ball, and I was like, there are 2 balls left in there, and one of them is Fulham, and one of them is definitely Cambridge. Like, this is on. Like,
It was a good draw.
Yeah,
It's a good draw.
Happy days. Let's dive into some transfers.
Yeah.
And as I said at the top, it looks like we have awoken. Finally, deadline day is on Monday, and it looks like Fulham might be making a few signings after all. Obviously, everyone, not just Fulham fans, have been kind of poking fun and having a bit of a laugh about how Fulham have barely made a signing apart from a backup goalkeeper. JK, the three rumours that I'm seeing that seem to be growing, the two that obviously are big and people like Fabrizio Romano have tweeted about them are Samuel Chukwueze and Kevin from Shakhtar Donetsk. Obviously, we've been linked with Kevin for several weeks now. Reece Nelson looks like it's not happening.
Yeah.
Looks like Palace are now in the front seat for Reece Nelson, and Fulham have maybe walked away from that. And then there are these kind of lingering rumours about Hayden Hackney from Middlesbrough. So we're here Thursday morning. It's 10:20. What's the latest, effectively?
I'm just waiting for my phone to blow up, really. But look, it's a really interesting one. The Chukwueze one, you know, when it was this time yesterday, it was like 25 million euro permanent deal. I was like, okay, interesting. And then as the day sort of went on, it was like, well, this is actually going to be a loan with an obligation. And I was like, okay, interesting. That was the initial sort of way we approached the deal in the first place. And then obviously, you know, you get that big old bomber from Fabrizio Romano where he's got both Kevin and Chukwueze. And I was like, oh my word, we're actually getting two. And this is insane. So and I hadn't heard about Kevin in terms of what was progressing in the deal since last Monday. So 10 days ago. And I actually thought as of 2-3 days ago, that one was dead. It wasn't happening. So I was like, okay, interesting. So obviously it's an interesting position to be in. I do think these two deals are going to progress. There is rumours that AC Milan want Chukwueze to play on Friday. I think they're playing Friday night in the Serie A.
Yeah.
Because they're short of wide options. And we're like, nah, we want you in ASAP Rocky so we can get on with our business. And I think what's happened this morning is there's been a little bit of a smokescreen with another link, Bakwa, I think his name is.
Dylan Bakwa.
Yeah, from Strasbourg. It came from Pete O'Rourke, and I saw that and I went, Pete O'Rourke.
It's not even that. I think that that's Fulham leaking stuff to try and push AC Milan in a direction of being like, right, okay, they might turn their attention away from this, and we do need to get money through the door. They're also not playing with wide players at the moment. Well, they're playing with wing backs with Max Allegri's new system. So there isn't really a space for Chukwueze. Like they're playing with this kind of weird two up top thing that one of them is Christian Pulisic and the other one is going to be Rafa Leao. Santi Jimenez played with Leao injured at the moment. They're about to sign Conrad Harder. And then they're also potentially about to sign Christopher Nkunku.
That's a here we go. We got a here we go.
So there's a here we go. So therefore, like, there's just not really a space for Chukwueze. Like, they're playing Salamak. If he's going to play right wing back, Salamakis is playing there. They've got Alex Jimenez and they signed Zachary Athakame. So, like, there's no space for him in any of the positions he would normally play. And so it makes sense for them to be looking to offload him in this window. I remember, obviously, Peter breaking this back in January. And it like coming through and everyone be like, whoa, okay, that's wild. And look, I really like Chukwueze. I think he's a really good player. He was excellent via Real, like a real kind of breakthrough star. He's never really landed at Milan, but they've been in a really weird topsy-turvy period in the last kind of 2 years or so. And it's just never really stuck for him. I don't think the formations have necessarily suited him. He was kind of pushed out by the Fab Four, as they were calling them, of Pulisic and Jimenez, and Rafa Leao and Joao Felix, so he just didn't really get a look in there. He was sort of banging on the door with Noah Okafor, who's obviously gone to Leeds now. Yeah. I think that this would be a really good signing. It feels like the kind of signing where Marco could get a player in who's kind of coming into his prime as opposed to a youngster. Kevin's far younger as a player, but I think that Chukwueze is the kind of player that could kind of make immediate impact. Plus, obviously, that Nigerian link within the squad with Calvin Bassey and Alex Iwobi. It is another one who potentially has to leave for AFCON.
Yeah.
No guarantee he's in the Nigeria squad, but I'd be surprised if he isn't. So there's that to consider. But I think on the whole, this would be a major, major boost for Fulham. Like I really like Chukwueze, and I think that he has all of the kind of stylistic traits that should allow him to succeed in the Premier League, especially if we get the player that we saw emerge at Villarreal.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting, and Jack, it looks like it's the phone's gone. It's
I was just Ornstein.
I always get excited.
That's Arsenal. Don't worry about that one.
I'm like, we signed him. No, we
it's
haven't. Damn it.
it's in Kunku from Ornstein. Apologies.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Interesting, this Hayden Hackney rumour.
Yeah.
I feel like he has been touted as a Premier League signing all summer. I think it's all the clubs in that kind of Fulham region that have been, no, I don't mean geographically, I mean in the table, mid-table clubs that have been linked with Hayden Hackney. He's obviously a huge talent. Do we see this one happening, JC? I know Dean Jones was quite hot on it.
Yeah, like as in not hot on this will happen. Hot on Fulham are going to watch him and are weighing up a bit. I probably should clarify. But so Fulham and West Ham watched Hackney this week. They're very interested. He's a little bit, according to reports, a bit concerned about what West Ham look like and what it's going to be like in the next sort of 6 months, where Fulham are a far more stable option. He turned down a move, I think, to Ipswich earlier in the window because he's basically made it clear to Middlesbrough that he's only going to leave if it's a Premier League club. He was like, I would rather be here if it's only another Championship club. And I think that's fair enough, with all respect to Ipswich, that Borough started the season really well. So I think it would take probably a 10-15 million pound bid to get him out of there. I think that would be worth it. I've been crying out for a long, long time for centre midfielders in this Fulham squad. And actually, I meant to bring this up earlier, but I think it's a good point to do it. There was a moment yesterday where Harrison Reed sort of broke through the middle and there was like 3 runners ahead of him and he just sort of passed the ball to the Bristol City defender. And there was a nasty thing that happened behind me. Like a bloke stood up and was like, that's why you don't play for us, you mug. And I was like, it seems really harsh. Like, poor little Harrison.
Yeah.
But
leave him alone.
I was like, that's mean. Don't do that. But also at the same time, that is what we're missing. And I don't really just mean from Harrison Reed, if I'm honest. Like, Fulham lack that ability for someone who just gets on the ball as a number 8 or those kind of players in the middle and has that ability to thread a pass in the same way. Now, Sasha controls the game and controls the tempo and is a wonderful, wonderful footballer. Sander Berger can be a destructive runner. We've not seen enough from either of them, right, in terms of actually getting the ball forward and progressing. That's not what their jobs have been asked to do, and I appreciate that. It's not all on them. It's partly on system and their requirements. But I do think that we could really do with someone just a little bit more creative and who has a bit more of a head for that forward pass in those central roles, especially when we're chasing games, especially when we're coming, and looking at these kind of areas. And I think that Hayden Hackney would be a really good addition. I think he's a Premier League player in waiting. He's been excellent in the Championship for a number of seasons. We've seen the kind of kick on that you can have. Palace are brilliant at bringing through players from the Championship who then obviously explode and go for big money. Like, I feel like Hayden Hackney is a bit of it's one of those, like, if it's on the table and he's on the table for the price that's been kind of mooted, that it's a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. He's an excellent, excellent footballer.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more in terms of actually what do you need? Because Fulham have, I think this has been a part of the problem all summer, is Fulham have 2 good midfielders in Sander Berger, Sasa Lukic. Like, I don't think we're going to sign him, but let's say you brought in Kobbie Mainoo. Right, he's obviously he's being offered around by Manchester United.
Wild, by the way.
Yeah, 40. They want 40-50 million for him. Maybe in theory, a team like Fulham could make an approach for someone like him. You bring in Kobbie Mainoo, you've got to put him in. Not only because he's like an England player but he's not going to come to Fulham and not expect to be in the first team straight away. And also, you spent that much money, you almost kind of you can't justify leaving him on the bench. Someone like Hayden Hackney, you bring him in, he's coming up from the Championship to the Premier League, he needs to learn a little bit the level, he's not played there before, you can use him kind of when it works tactically, but also if you don't put him straight in the first team, it's not ripping apart Hayden Hackney. He's not going to have his agent on the phone to Marco saying, why is Hayden not like your first team starter from the get-go?
Yeah.
He's 23. He'll grow into the side. You're totally right. I think that sometimes you look at what Crystal Palace do, and I know that it's easier said than done to just be like, oh, just go buy Adam Wharton. Yeah. But I actually think... And
you have to be careful shopping in the Championship.
Yeah,
because
you do.
As in, especially if, we've seen from the promoted sides, the cream of the Championship often isn't good enough. But that's different to plucking a single player and putting them in a Premier League setup. And I think that you can. It's not guarantee, but I think that you can get good value, and I think that you can make serious gains by having a look at players who are just playing above their level.
Yeah.
at the level below, and it has to be a fit tactically. I feel like Hayden Hackney really is a stylistic fit, and I will be upset if he goes elsewhere.
Yeah. I would love to sign Hayden Hackney. My concern is, when I was on the way to the Cottage last night, was reading that Borough's stance is that they can't sell him now because they don't have time to replace him. And the fact of the matter is they're losing Finazaz as well to Southampton.
Yeah, I saw
so
that.
they're losing Finazaz, and if they lose Hayden Hackney, suddenly two quite key players for them.
But money, ultimately, money talks, and if
It does. Money has a mouth, and it does talk, of course. But the thing is, it's like when you're Middlesbrough and you're under Rob Edwards, who's just come in and they've got 3 wins from 3 in the Championship without conceding a goal, to then lose Hackney and Finazaz,
yeah.
all that positivity from that opening three games of the season is just going to evaporate. In fact, I think they did concede a goal against. I can't.
They're still
Anyway.
3 from 3.
They're still 3 from 3.
I get it. Like, it's not easy to do the deal, but like he's been linked all summer with.
He's also
moves.
made it quite clear, I think, to Borough that if a
Yeah.
Premier League club come in, he wants to make that move.
Yeah.
So like that's different. That doesn't mean that they'll be like, oh, we will sell you. Fine, no worries. Like we know that that's not how the transfer market works. But like there is a level of being like you don't want to upset a player, potentially tank their valuation, etc. Either at the same time, especially if you're trying to reinvest and make things stick. So like, I would put some money on the table quickly.
And because of his age, and
a
because
player.
of it's the summer, when we go to January, this could be the only opportunity he gets to move to the Premier League in the next year or so. Because maybe the teams who West Ham or Fulham don't have the money to stump up in January, and suddenly you're blocking his progression, you're blocking his development, and a Premier League move seems like the next big step for Hayden Hackney. And I would love it to be down the Cottage.
Yeah. So just to sum up, if come Monday 7:01 p.m. the deal sheets are in, and it's Kevin, Samuel Chukwueze, and Hayden Hackney.
I don't know. You can have more than 2 deal sheets. I think you can only have 2.
Okay, that's an annoying technicality.
Okay, right. We'll sign one of them at 6:59.
Okay, we've signed Hayden Hackney at 6:59, and there's 2 deal sheets in for Kevin and Samuel Chukwueze.
Yeah.
Are you happy with this summer's transfer business?
I'm not happy. I'm relieved that Marco Silva has got what he wants, and it's had to take him 5 or 6 times to drill it home in the media that that's what he wants. And I think as a fan base, you've got to be pleased that we've done business and that there's money to spend and that we have spent. But as in terms of preparation for a Premier League season with 3 very tough fixtures for the opening 3 games, which of course we got 2 points from now, you'd have to feel fairly concerned that it came this late and that Marco Silva had to go to extreme measures and say very extreme things to make things happen. Overall, I think the fan base will be happy because they get those signings. I mean, when was the last time we got a here we go? It was Reece Nelson on deadline day last year. Willian joining was just a bit like, oh, okay, well, welcome back. But
here we go again.
Here we go again, exactly. So look, I want obviously the fan base to have a fun time over the next 3-4 days. But ultimately, I wanted Marco Silva to have a pre-season with new players that he could integrate into his team. He hasn't had that, and that's a real cause for concern. Whether it's funny if the deals get done, and Marco Silva literally said it the other day. He hates deadline day deals. He doesn't like deadline day. He doesn't like the way that we operate on deadline day. But if we get those deals in, it'll be all smiles again in 2 weeks' time once the dust has settled after the international break pre-Leeds, and then those conversations will come back. Do you think he'll sign a contract? He's in his last year. Do you think he's happy with? So it's going to be.
Can't wait for September.
It's actually it's good for the board, and it's good for just for good PR that we have these 2 weeks away from football after the Chelsea game, Walham Green game, where we just have nothing, and that we can have time to settle as a squad, and Marco Silva can maybe have time to calm down from the situation, and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But Jack, as a squad, if that is it, are there any gaps now? Because you've got left wing cover, you've got right wing cover, you've got that centre midfielder that I think we talked about. When me and you did this podcast, I think early July, where we said what do Fulham need. I think that's pretty much. I mean, we talked about a few different permutations.
I think I said 2 centre midfielders. I've been saying this for 2 years. Like, I just feel like we need to have different options in there. Like, so I like my point of earlier about having a player in who can play in the 8, who's a bit more like progressive, etc. Which of Sandro or Sasha do you play alongside him?
I feel like I feel like it's probably I like Sander Berge. I would mostly have Sander Berge and then have a flip. If you can have Sander but then have someone like Hayden progressing and always have Sander as a base, I quite like that option. But that's maybe being a bit safety first.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned that we have sort of like two non-progressive defensive midfielders who aren't really defensive midfielders, who kind of work as a shield, right? Sasha wins the ball and Berger like storms around. That's the kind of partnership that they have. Neither of them are particularly good at progressing in terms of the roles that they're after. And there was a lovely piece, I quoted it in the piece I was making in defence of not selling Andreas the other day. And look, I'll be honest, I'm not completely convinced by my own argument. Like, I don't mind us selling Andreas with a year left on his deal, as long as we bring someone in. Like, as in, if we sell Andreas and we do not bring a centre midfielder in, I'm going to be livid. And like, I just have this kind of frustration, and I think it's Kim McCauley wrote in the Transfer Flow, and they did a brilliant season preview for every club. And it was like, Sander Berge and Sasha Lukic are both good midfielders, but they don't really progress the ball. Good teams can usually get away with having one of these kind of players in their midfields, not two. And I think that there's a point there. I think the fact that we look a little bit stodgy and turgid sometimes is because neither of them are progressors. And yet, I don't know if I 100% trust either of them to be a defensive midfielder with a progressive player in front of them. I still would have liked like a natural all-action six. And look, this is a lot to ask because you're asking for a Polinia type destroyer who can kind of anchor a midfield on their own. And that's not always how it works. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And I wonder if Josh King, we might see picking up the ball in deeper areas if we were to play with a single pivot and like have two number 8s as opposed to, 6, 8, 10. But I do think that we're probably still, by my money, a centre midfielder short, even if we're probably one short right now. If Andreas goes, I think we're 2 short.
Sorry, this is the concern for me that came last night, was that basically Silva's been saying ever since he's sort of kicked off in the press conferences about signings that we need a midfielder, and I was like, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And then last night he comes out and says, if he stays, he stays. Pereira. If he stays, he stays. If he leaves, he leaves. If he leaves, we need to replace him. And I was like, so that's another body in.
Yeah.
With these 3, 4, 5 days left, 4 days.
He's going to go as well.
Yeah, Pereira's. He's off to see the Wizard. The Wizard being Brazil.
It's done. It's done. Yeah, it's done, Josh. That's a done deal. I don't think I'm breaking any news. Christ, Jack.
I don't even know what that phrase was. God, I'm actually in tears.
He's off to see
He's upset. In part 2, we're off to see the Wizard that is the SW6 derby. The 25-26 season is shaping up to be a big one for Fulham, and one thing you need ahead of it is NordVPN, the fastest VPN on the planet that allows you to watch football matches from wherever you are in the world, on either your phone, your tablet, or your laptop. For instance, you could use NordVPN to watch Premier League matches for a fraction of the price, including those 3 p.m. kickoffs that aren't available in this country. Or if you go on holiday this summer, you can use NordVPN to access your UK TV subscriptions. And right now, you can use NordVPN on up to 10 devices, which means you can share the amazing benefits that NordVPN has with your family or your friends. And you can get a great deal when you sign up to NordVPN at nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Not only will you get a huge discount, but you'll also get 4 months extra as well. And it's entirely risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. So to get that special discount plus 4 free months, go to nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. That's nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. Sammy here on the Thursday Club with Jack Kelly and Jack Collins. We've just about regained our composure from the end of part 1. Thank you to everyone who has backed Fulhamish on the new Fulhamish Substack. Head to fulhamish.co.uk. It's a way of our biggest supporters supporting the content that we do, but also allowing us to keep everything free. You get access to advert-free videos. You also get access to our Telegram group, which is thriving. And the launch has gone really well. We're so grateful to everyone that's backed us, and obviously, as I've said lots of times, Your support means that we can keep this free and open to all Fulham fans. And we've also got some really exciting articles on the Fulhamish website. Our very own Jack Kelly is now writing an article each week, View from the Press Box, which is kind of like it's kind of behind the curtain of the of the press room, which I particularly love, Jack. They're fantastic articles. We've also got a new article strand. If you read The Guardian, I appreciate not everyone does, but whenever Fulham has a game and The Guardian does a match report, in the comments section, you might notice these very, very, very long match reports from a user called ZZ Top Fulham. And actually, I know plenty of people who go to the Guardian website not to read the Guardian's match report, it's to read ZZ Top Fulham's match report. Anyway, we noticed him a long time back. We contacted him and said, look, would you be up for writing these match reports on the Fulhamish website instead of the comments section of The Guardian? And ZZ Top Fulham's name is actually Owen McDonald. And he was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So he's now on the Fulhamish website. He does these really long match write-ups, and they're brilliant.
Yeah, they're epics.
They are so good. You can read right now his report on the Bristol City game, and also he's done the first 2 matches of the season. He's going, but he's lost the stage name now. He's now Owen McDonald. So he's lost the ZZ Top Fulham. He's taken it seriously. But anyway, thank you for supporting us, and it's enabled us to do some really great stuff on the Fulhamish website. So thank you. Also, in the Fulhamish Content Factory is the preview, which Elizabeth Barnard hosts every week on the YouTube channel, where she looks ahead to the next game, speaks to an opposition fan, and we just wanted to put a little bit of an excerpt ahead of this Saturday's big SW6 derby in today's podcast. Elizabeth spoke to Chelsea fan Teddy in the preview, and she asked him what this derby means to Chelsea fans.
I think particularly given that the club Chelsea has had some really weird years with Abramovich leaving, the new ownership and the teething issues that came with that, I think as a Chelsea fan, the beginning of that sort of Bowley, Clearlake era that was so frustrating was the identity of the club seeming to be lost a little bit, whether that be the academy graduates seeming to be sold at every opportunity. Like the most Chelsea I can think of the team being was that first year of Lampard when it was all the academy graduates. And I really feel like these derbies, particularly this Fulham derby, that's the big sort of game that I, as a fan, am actually really, really excited for. And I think these games really matter for the identity of the club, to keep that Chelsea identity. And I've already mentioned it, but last season, these derbies, the 2 of them were pretty massive games for both sides for completely different reasons. As a Chelsea fan, I think this is a really big game for us ahead of international break coming up very soon. Didn't have a great opening game against Palace. We thrashed a really bad West Ham team. I think a really good performance in this derby could actually bring some more life to these whisperings of title challengers.
Thank you very much to Elizabeth and to Teddy. Check out the preview. It's going to be out on Friday, only on the Fulhamish YouTube. So subscribe there as well. Right, admin corner out the way. Let's look ahead to Saturday lunchtime's big match, 12:30, the SW6 derby at the Bridge. Jack, can we do it again?
Can we? Yeah. Like, it's very plausible. I think that what's been interesting about seeing Fulham in these first 2 games is how many of the patterns we recognise, right? Not only Fulham scoring late goals off the bench from substitutes to actually rescue points where none were available before. But I think that we're seeing a team that looks relatively settled. I think we're seeing a team that looks like they know what they're doing. Does it need more explosivity? Does it need players through the door? Yes, because we saw the fade away at the end of last season. We know what new players and new excitement and competition can bring in terms of raising people's levels. But I do think that in terms of what we've seen in these first 2 games, I wasn't wild at the 5 at the back formation against Manchester United.
No, neither.
Although I think that I can understand why Marco did it. And I understand what he was trying to do. I just think that we looked far more in control of the game once we went to that 4 at the back. Now, part of that was United dropping off, but
part of that was Anthony Robinson as well. As soon as he was able to come on as a substitute, I think Marco felt more comfortable with the 4.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. And look, I expect Anthony Robinson to be fit and ready for starting on the weekend, which is why we saw Cess, I think, at a left back in the Bristol City game. I think if there were question marks, he would have been given half an hour in this game to kind of just iron them out. The fact is that he wasn't, and I think that that's a really good thing. I expect, Fulham played that 5 at the back system against Chelsea last year to counteract the fact that we were in, a difficult spot. We have not got those injury issues, suspension issues that we had last time out. And thus, I would imagine that Marco is going to go for it a little bit more in this one. Now, what that turns the game into, I do not know. And I do wonder if we end up in a bit of a helter-skelter encounter here, if we come out the worst of it. And I know that obviously the basketball game element of the end of the game last year was the thing that ended up with the winner. It equally could have ended up with us losing it, right? There were opportunities either side. And much as that day was absolutely the best, so brilliant, like one of the best atmospheres ever I've been in a stadium and in a away end, like you look back at it and you think, ooh, there's opportunities. And Bernd Leno put in a bit of a masterclass and that all helps. And look, can that happen again? Yeah, of course it can. Like Fulham have the players to make a difference. We have, pretty much that entire squad still available to us. And Chelsea have changed. And that means that there are teething problems, there are issues. I think the fact that they won, heavily, obviously, against West Ham on Friday will have helped kind of ease and soothe some of the confidence. But equally, at the Bridge on the first day, there was a lot of frustration by Palace keeping them out, keeping them at bay. If Fulham can do the same, I think that there is scope to be able to go and make sure that this game is won. But do we go into it thinking, oh yeah, this is on, we're going to go back to back at the Bridge? I think that would be presumptuous.
Yeah, of course. Jack, as Jack said there, I expect Fulham to return to 4 at the back here. I think Anthony Robinson will start. Who else do we expect to play for Fulham in this one?
Well, not Harry Wilson. So that's something to consider. So I think that essentially what we'll do is we'll play Leno, Robinson, Bassi, Anderson, Tete, Berger, Lukic, Smith Rowe, 10. I just think.
Do you think?
Yeah, I think.
Even though he started
last night. I was having that conversation yesterday at the game.
The thing is with Josh, I mean, Josh is incredibly exciting. He can turn it on at any second. And I just thought against Man United, it was a little bit rabbit in the headlights. But then again, yeah, you're right. Maybe Smith Rowe, because he played last night, maybe there's an opportunity there for Josh. And it is Josh's starting place that Smith Rowe has to take off King. So, okay.
Weirdly, I think if there hadn't been a game last night,
then
I think Smith Rowe might have started at the weekend.
Right. Yeah.
Because he was thrown in for now, because it was like, oh, you've earned your start, you've earned your spot.
Yeah.
And then you start there. Unless Smith Rowe starts on the left or Wobie goes over to the right.
Yeah, that's also an opportunity as well, because if you don't have Wilson, then suddenly it's either Adama on the right or Session on the right with a Wobie on the left.
You need someone, but with Wilson now out, you need.
We don't know that for sure.
Well, okay, Wilson likely out. He's injured on Wednesday. Is he going to be fit for Saturday 12:30?
Yes.
Well, what I was about to say is, I think someone who plays right wing is going to have had to play a lot of minutes on Wednesday night. Because it's either Sessegnon who played, it's either Adama Traore who played, or you go like
shift
Smith.
It over and
you have to go
Smith
live Smith Rowe on the left who played, and then Iwobi on the right. So someone's going to have to do a double shift effectively with Wilson, and Wilson played. So
I was going to say, but Harry started, but would he have been subbed at half time? I wonder. It would have been maybe my thoughts on how it worked.
And then obviously Muniz up top, I think. The thing about Rodrigo Muniz is it's really interesting. He obviously scored the goal against Brighton. Everyone's delighted, whatever. The other two performances, cameos he's had off the bench against last night, and then he
started against
United.
He's pretty anonymous in both.
Yeah, and that's the concern, isn't it? There's all this talk around him. The summer, he's so crucial. I'm not knocking the guy whatsoever, but he needs to put in a good centre forwards performance for everyone to get a little bit more confident about his ability this season to score plenty of goals. Obviously, he's a great impact sub. We saw that last season, all the grounds he scored at from the bench. Jimenez is probably a better natural starter as of last season. And obviously started last night, started against Frankfurt, scored in both games. I'm waiting to see a big Rodrigo Muniz performance from the off, basically, and not having to rely on
Like
him
a
to come
Liverpool
off.
from last season.
Yeah, and that was obviously fantastic. He spun Van Dijk and scored a fantastic goal.
Like he was unplayable that day.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We haven't seen that enough from Rodrigo consistently from the start. And now that there's all this demand, there's all this, we want him to stay, we want him to sign a new contract. He's going to be the starting striker this season. And we need to see, I don't want to be harsh, I'd never like to slander players at all, but we need to see better performances from him. It's early days.
I would also say that I don't think either are necessarily completely his fault. In that yesterday, when he came on, he wasn't great, but as in the only time he was really competing for anything was when balls just sort of lumped up towards him when we were defending on the edge of our own box. And in the United game with 5 at the back, the moment we switched to 4, it looked better, and at that moment he'd been removed, right? There is an element, I think, of he wasn't really given the service in either game to try and thrive. That doesn't mean that you can't do more with what you've been given, right? And I think both arguments can hold true at the same time.
I think also, I think the fact that Jimenez looked really anonymous against Brighton, as he was starting, and they talked about this on Sunday's podcast. It might just be partially in the system as well. And as you say, it's not, Raul came on the bench.
We contain. And then, then we go at 70 minutes. It's always going to be the player who comes on at 70 minutes with the go team, if you will, to actually looks better.
Yeah. Hopefully we can start to fix that, because we can't just keep relying on going 1-0 down and then looking good for the last 20 minutes in order to save ourselves. In terms,
It can.
In terms of the Blues, Jack, they obviously have a couple of quite key injuries. Levi Cole was a massive miss for them. He's so crucial in the way they build up. So, I mean, Chalobah and Adebayo both started.
We don't call him Tosin anymore. Fair enough.
Both started at the back against West Ham. And it's TBC whether Cole Palmer will play. He injured his groin in the warm-up against West Ham. So I think he was in the starting lineup, and then he was taken out the starting lineup after injuring his groin. The reports midweek that he wasn't training on Tuesday feels to me unlikely that he'll be in the squad, especially considering Chelsea have
maybe
depth.
in the starting 11, maybe.
Yeah, I think he could be on the bench. But look, I mean, you still only have to look around this squad. There's unbelievable players all over. They kind of went with João Pedro and Liam Delap against West Ham. They scored 5. West Ham were horrendous.
Yeah.
And that was a big part of it. But at the same time, it was quite scary watching them score goal after goal after goal.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be the thing with Chelsea this season, I think. That they're going to have periods in games where they just absolutely able to throttle down, and they can score 2-3 in quick succession. And we have to avoid that, obviously. And I think that the thing that West Ham did was their heads went down. I don't think that'll happen to Fulham. That's just not really in our DNA. It's not in our nature. It's not in our makeup. In the same way that things just feel all over the shop in East London at the moment. So Chelsea do have that capacity to punish people, to punish teams, and that is scary. I think that Willian Esteval's had an excellent start, better than pretty much anyone I think could have hoped for in a blue shirt from their perspective, and that I think is a little bit scary. That battle, against Robinson down that our left, their right, could be a very, very interesting one, I think, coming into it. João Pedro playing behind Liam Delap, I think, is an interesting decision that they've made there. I don't know if they'll go with that again. I wonder if actually they, Enzo Maresca will have seen what happened in this game last year. They might go back to the 3 in midfield that involves, an extra midfielder in there and Enzo playing a bit further forward, as they did in the Club World Cup final, which I think would be harder to break down from a Fulham perspective. And I think it would, we've obviously seen Josh King come up against Carlos Baleba already. Now it potentially comes up against Moises Caicedo. These are big tests for the young gun. So, it's exciting to see your players come up against these kind of, opposition and see if they can test their mettle, especially I think in King's case, because we're kind of just still trying to feel out exactly where he sits and what he does and how good he is. We know he's brilliant. How good can he be? Can he? Because if you go there and you run rings around Moises Caicedo, people are going to start to stand up and take notice, right? So I do think it's really interesting now how this one goes and what happens next, because then I think it will give us a better idea of where this squad stands. I imagine it's going to come too early for Fulham to have any new signings through the door. So it feels like it's one of those where we have to be in a space where we're like comfortable with where we are. I'd imagine that is the four at the back, and I think that Robinson coming back is a massive part of this. I don't know where we sit with those three behind the striker. That's the bit I'm intrigued by.
Yeah, and in terms of, I think when this first game was first announced and the fixtures came out, I think we said it's not a good time to face Chelsea because they were still riding the momentum of the Club World Cup. I mean, that doesn't seem to have been too apparent in their performances so far. I do think it's slightly unfortunate that we actually were facing a European team at this stage, because it's one of the few times in the season where actually we're at a disadvantage by not being in Europe, because we played in the second round of the Carabao Cup whilst they've had a week off. Not that we played that many of the first team in the match, so it's not a huge issue, but it will have meant that, you know, even the analysts and Marco's team will have had to kind of juggle a couple of plates this week rather than being completely 100% focused on the Chelsea game. I just think, JK, that Fulham looks so fit. That's one thing I felt like in both games. I'm like, Fulham just really look like we're well conditioned. We've had a great pre-season. Everyone looks top notch. So I'm slightly, and actually for Chelsea, you wonder if a couple of injuries that they've had, you know, very, very little rest between those two. I don't think it's. I actually just don't know how much of the bit of it is a factor anymore. The Club World Cup.
I'm erring on the side of caution ahead of Saturday. I think this is our trickiest game so far. And if you look at the two games individually that we've had in the Premier League so far, in terms of pressure that we've had to endure, quite a lot from Brighton in the second half, a lot from Man United at the start of the game, and then quite a bit at the end when they were pushing for a winner with Harry Maguire. In terms of the second half, we were miles better than United. And I think this is going to be a game where we're going to have to endure pressure throughout the whole 90 and basically try and pick them up on the break. And with the players that they've got, even if they don't have Palmer, you know, João Pedro, who just seems to fit like a glove at Chelsea, Neto, Estevao, who was very, very good against West Ham. And the way they cut open West Ham was quite alarming. I think, was it a case of were West Ham really bad and Chelsea really good? Probably a bit of both. So I'm nervous.
West Ham made opportunity as much as they fell apart.
They had loads of shots.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Paqueta scored that rocket, and Fulkrug, you know, it was a very marginal offside that would have meant West Ham going 2-1 up.
Look,
West Ham were able to create chances.
There's
in
two
that
sides
game.
to this.
And Crystal Palace arguably could have won.
We should have won. But the point is that I would have us, like, we're not as stodgy as Palace. Like, Palace away are like a force to be reckoned with, because they go there and they're just like, come on then, and we will pick you off. Like, and look, they should have won that game 1-0, right? Like that's the long and short of it. Like, it feels like Palace had the opportunity to go and make it happen, and there was a couple, you know, Mateta trying to lob Sanchez at one point when he should have just probably taken it round him. There was a couple, but I do think that you can get at this Chelsea backline, and I think that physicality, and actually if Silva is doing his job or the analysts are doing their job, they will look at the way that JP Mateta bullied the centre-backs in that first game and be like, Rodrigo, you run into these lads, you give them everything physically, and they won't be able to withstand you in the same way because you are just a really bizarre human to mark. And so is Mateta. Like, he's also a bit of a strange kind of figure in terms of how he looks. So, like, I do think there is opportunities. I don't think we're as stodgy as Palace, and thus I think that Chelsea will create more against us. You know, they created as well. And look, then they score 5 against West Ham, but West Ham are all over the place. So, like, somewhere between those two, it's just a question of where on the sliding scale Fulham sit, right?
Look, it's going to be a good match of football, right? And, like, I think it's going...
I fancy us to be competitive. Again, like I was saying this yesterday, I don't see Fulham getting battered in the same way, not in this game, but generally across the season, in the same way that we're seeing, like, Leeds get hammered or West Ham get hammered. Like, I just don't think that that's what this Fulham side are like. And look, maybe someone will clip that up and in 3 weeks' time I look really stupid. But I don't think I think if it was to happen, it'd be a one-off, like absolute, like mind-numbing one, like where you're like, I don't understand what's just happened. Like QPR's one against Coventry at the weekend where they scored 7 goals from like 1.6 XG, and you're like, that's just nuts. Like, there's nothing you can do about that. So I think that Fulham are in a better place to compete, and I think we'll be competitive again at the weekend. Whether we have enough to actually go and win that game or get something from it, I don't know yet, especially with the lack of signings, but I'm confident that we'll be competitive.
What's really encouraging is this is going to be our first start, hopefully, because he wasn't involved last night with Anthony Robinson. And what Fulham need to do is on transition and when they get those opportunities, where if Muniz was to come deep to receive the ball and play it out to Iwobi and then have Robinson flying down that left-hand side as an overlapping run, get the balls into the box quick and try and feed off those scraps. My concern is if you take away Robinson and we're on the counter-attack, but Robinson hasn't quite joined in yet. It's that ball-carrying ability from Sessegnon, which I don't think is particularly that strong. I think it's very strong from Iwobi down the middle, but especially on the left-hand side, he's not blessed with incredible pace. So you're basically relying on Robinson to make that overlapping run and just carry the ball enough so that you've got Robinson play the pass and then get the ball in. And I just feel as though in those 1v1 situations, especially if Sessegnon does start on the right, for him to sort of turn and get a cross in, I just don't see that happening too often. He'll probably go on the outside and try and get low balls in. Iwobi's obviously very, very good in what he did against Man United, what he did against West Ham last season. The check back and the very like iconic sort of cross into the box where it sort of floats into the box. And can we get that Josh King running onto those balls? Can we get Rodrigo to hold it up? There's lots of ways we can get at Chelsea. I'm not as like... Basically, if we come away from this from 3 points from 3 draws from 3 games, I'll be doing cartwheels.
I'll be delighted with the point, I'll be honest.
Yeah, of course. I think we all would.
If we win, we're 1 point better off than we were at this stage last season.
Oh, I mean, winning, you're obviously in complete dreamland for multiple reasons. Yeah. But look, I'm looking at it. I'm feeling okay. I think
I'm not as bullish as I was last year. I was quite bullish on beating Chelsea last year.
So I remember it being a bit of a fun. Obviously we'd drawn that game to Southampton. So I remember thinking last year I didn't think it was on, and Chelsea had been really, really good up until that point. So I was not. But I'm just looking at it now. I think if you've got Colwill and Palmer in there, I do think that probably there's just a little bit too much. But I think what you said about Chalobah, Tosin, I think someone like Muniz can bully him. I'm interested to see what we do on the right as well. Like I think you do wonder if it could just be another run out for Adama. I mean, I don't think he was very impressive last night, and I thought he was a little bit wasteful. But
he was deeply wasteful.
But that
also, I wonder if we'll bring 2 wingers in if we're going to sell Adama.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So like, as in, like, I'd keep an eye on that one if I'm honest.
We got lots of emails. We're going to save a lot of them, though, for the international break. Just this one from David Nicholson, who just did a little nice review of last night's game, which I thought I'd read, called Fulham Peer First. David says, evening, Fulhamish, working in our Oxford office for a couple of days, so made a mad dash to the game last night. Likes, cheap tickets in the Riverside and a feeling of being in a crowd. Cuenca, he looked solid, very admittedly average opposition. ESR, inventive. TSR and HR playing a full 90. Silly songs from the Hammersmith end. Didn't like. Shambles following first subs. What formation was that? General sloppiness after going 2 up. But hey, into the next round, and let's see if we can get some players in by then. I think David summed it up.
Yeah, very nice. I was on the bit outside the Riverside yesterday, and it was interesting. Like, you were about 10 minutes before kickoff, and I was like, I don't feel like I'm at a football match. But it was really bizarre.
It's looking good in there though.
Yeah, it's all very nice.
Is it one thing I have?
I'm just a bit like kind of freaked out with the lack of like all the bits that are Fulham branded. There's no Fulhamish branding. All the bits that are Fulham branded are on screens.
Yeah.
So they can be changed.
Right, I see.
And I was a bit like, it's like, we were looking at it, it was like the only thing that's Fulham branded on these bars is like there was Fulham sweets in there. And I was like, this is weird. Like, very strange.
Almost as if like Fulham have been loaned the stand for the game. It's like, oh yeah, we can change the TVs so it feels like a Fulham match, but equally, like Spurs could go play there and they can make it feel
and stuff, right? There's like let the good times roll and live by the river and things that like have like loose affiliations to the Fulham Football Club.
Yeah.
But like you wouldn't be like, oh, immediately live by the river. Like you wouldn't be like, oh, cool, that's definitely Fulham. Like if you didn't know, I don't know. Like I was quite happy sitting there for that. I would quite happily sit there for Cambridge in the cup. I probably won't sit there again. This season, apart from those.
Is it finished though? Because the last time I was in the Riverside,
it's finished.
There was like chipboard. There was like kind of.
Well, I didn't go upstairs, but
okay.
It looked, and there were people sat outside on the terrace having espresso martinis at halftime, etc. So
yeah,
you know.
When's the exclusive Jack Kelly press conference from the swimming pool?
I don't know. Whenever they fill up the swimming pool with water, I don't necessarily think that I'm going to be in and around the Riverside too much this season. I went to the launch event in the summer where they sort of were like, "This is the Fulham Pier," and like Jack said, I looked around, I went, "Are we at Craven Cottage or am I somewhere else?" I don't really see anything that has any affiliation to Fulham whatsoever. However, the food was nice, the Pims were nice as well, and after a couple of hours, I just thought, okay, I'm gonna head over to the hot pole and have another Pims somewhere else.
Yeah.
But it was nice, and actually for the Frankfurt game, they gave us a nice food voucher that we can go over to the Riverside and get from one of the food stalls over there. So I got the wraps from, I believe it's
Wrap.
but who fronts it? It's Tiny Temper, I want to say.
Is it
yes.
Unknown Teas thing? Well, there were all wraps are different names. There's a JME wrap, and there's a Soldier Boy wrap, and there's
I
I
think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is Tiny Temper. All right. I
Buffalo
mean, look, I
chicken
think
was
it's
pretty good.
everything.
It was very nice. Like
Yeah.
my friend had one last night, and he was there. It was actually very
Buffalo
good.
chicken was fantastic.
Yeah.
Albeit quite
There you
nice.
go.
All right. All we need to do is name the podcast. Jack, what would you like to go for?
I'm going to go with TJ Fogarty and Cruise Control Carabao.
Nice. Okay, perfect. Good to hear from TJ. That'll do for today. Thank you very much for listening and for watching. Can we get back to back at the bridge? You whites.
You whites.